As soon as I hit record, she poops herself. Alright, let's do this.
Oh.
We want to tell the story of how Cove Alora Orlean Mays was born.
Yeah. March 24th at 4:30 in the morning. I get up for my typical morning pee that wakes me up every night while I'm pregnant at exactly 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Get up, pee, come back to bed. I'm standing next to the bed, and there's a little squirt that comes out.
A little trickle of an unknown substance.
So I'm like, oh god. So I obviously go back to the bathroom, and I'm like, what was that?
Did I pee myself?
Yeah, no. I know that I didn't pee myself. My immediate thought was, did my water just break? So then I'm like, I go in the bathroom and I turn the light on. So Dusty saw that the light was on, which normally I wouldn't turn the light on. So he like comes in there and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, something just came down my leg. And yeah, so anyway, we start Googling.
Yeah, so we reached out to a good friend of ours, Google.
And it's like, if your water broke, you'll know. Like.
So I go back to sleep thinking, hey, the water didn't break, no big deal.
I do not go back to sleep because I'm like, what the hell was that then?
It's the most typical, like, guy goes to sleep.
Well, I'm laying there from 4:30 to, it was probably 8, and then I finally was like, Dusty, like, you gotta
get up. Something might not be right.
Yeah. And in that time, I also had 2, like strong belly cramps, but, like, genuinely felt like period cramps. Like, didn't, like, but also, obviously, I don't have a period, so that was weird.
Yeah.
So I knew, like, what was that?
And no more fluid came either with it.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't like she kept having fluid and then,
It said that too. It on Google. It was like, if it's your water, then like, even if a little bit came out at first, like if you go lay down and more come out, like more comes out, then like that's it.
It's a good chance it's your water.
But nothing else came out.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So we thought she peed herself.
No, Dusty thought that I peed myself. I knew I didn't pee myself.
So we wake up, we have some friends coming over that morning.
Yes.
They bring over a dozen of donuts, which Brittany and I, we eat, I think, 10 of the dozen donuts, while our friends eat 1.5.
My body knew.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies knew that this was about to be a long day, a long night, a long next week.
They leave, and Brittany
I
and
didn't have any contractions, nothing.
Yeah, sorry, no contractions, no nothing. Everything seemed very normal for her that morning.
And this is like 12 o'clock now, they leave.
They leave, and we're like, look, we gotta be active. We just ate like
400 donuts.
Yeah, 400 donuts a piece. So we go on a walk.
39 weeks today.
39 weeks today. What are we doing?
This is walking that baby out.
We start walking, and Brittany's like, let's do this loop that we do twice. And it was like a 5-mile loop. And during the walk, she's kind of having a few contractions, or cramps is what she would have said that they were. But it was very like, walking, she's like, oh yeah, I'm having a cramp. Yeah,
we were so far apart.
Like, okay, now I'm not having a cramp.
Yeah.
And so the cramps, even then, we were like, okay, let's just treat them like they're contractions. And they were like 2.5 hours apart, it felt like. I mean, they were honestly like 45 minutes apart.
Yeah. 2
of them. And so we were kind of like, okay, that's probably nothing, no big deal, let's just keep going business as usual kind of thing.
Yeah, this was my grandma's walk. My grandparents, they would walk literally every day.
Cove's middle name comes from.
Yeah. Every evening they would take this walk. So we did the walk twice. We get home. I'm like, all right, let's do some
house projects.
And on our way to Walmart, I started having like more consistent contractions. There's like still like so bearable. Like they're like they would literally be like I'm like, am I cramping? Is that a cramp? Is that like in my head? Like I don't know.
And Junior, I can't make this up. She's like, yeah, I think I'm having one. Yeah, I think it's gone. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if that was one. I'm not, like, I mean, she was, like, totally unfazed by it. So we get in Walmart, we're walking around, and she's like, yeah, I'm definitely having them, and they start to get more consistent. So now we're talking, like, 8 to 12 minutes apart, I think, at that point. But they're lasting about 30 seconds.
Yeah, they're definitely more consistent. They're still not really intense. Like, I get home, and I'm like, let me like shower and wash my hair and like do all these things that like just in case.
Well, once we got home, they were about 3.5 minutes apart.
Yeah.
Like, but still not intense. I mean, from her perspective, not intense.
Like I'm literally in the back and I'm like blow drying my hair and like
I'm
blow
in the kitchen cooking dinner.
And I'm like, I'm having one, so you can time it, like, because we're like trying to stay on top of it so we kind of know like what's going on. But nothing crazy.
Yeah. So we call the doctor. After an hour goes by, she has them like pretty consistently, like 3 to 3.5 minutes apart.
This is probably like 6 o'clock by now.
All right. So It is currently 6:45 on Saturday night, February 24th. And we are at home making some dinner, and Brittany has been having contractions now for really the last 2 hours. Pretty frequently. This is crazy. How you feeling, Mama?
Crazy.
Girl, look at you. Just, you looking good. How you feeling?
I'm good in this moment.
What'd you do today?
Walked 5 miles.
Yeah, we did walk 5 miles. But we thought today was just gonna be another day, and it seems like we're progressing into labor. It's awesome. You look amazing, babe.
Yeah, so we eat dinner, call the doctor, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it could be early labor, but if you're talking to me on the phone, it doesn't sound like you're like really having like, you know, intense active labor contractions.
Yeah, like
So-
he's kind of just like, probably not.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, whatever, you know.
He said if they get more intense
Yeah.
in the next hour and
Mhm.
stay this consistent, like, you know, maybe come in.
Right.
So then, yeah, another hour goes by and they start to get more intense.
Yeah.
Like, I started having them in my back, so obviously that was like,
But she is literally a superhuman, because when she says intense, she's like walking across the bedroom and she's like, oh yeah, that hurts. Yeah, okay.
we're like doing laundry. I'm like, okay, can we like do this laundry before? Again,
Clean
all this
the rest
is just
of the
in
house,
case. Yeah.
making sure bottles are sanitized. Just in case that she's, you know, she comes.
Yeah.
But they stay very consistent. Then they start to get around 2 minutes, a minute and a half apart.
I know everyone's been asking like, how long was labor? And I'm like, I don't. And even online, like when you look up, like everything says something different.
Like officially, when does labor start?
Yeah,
active
or even
labor.
active labor.
Yeah,
like
right.
some sites say it's this centimeter, this to this centimeter, something like,
Right.
and it's different. So I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that question because, and even like rating intensity, I'm like everyone's different. So it's like, how do you do that? Maybe.
Next hour goes by. They've gotten more intense, and they're actually closer in proximity to each other. So we call the doctor back,
And he's like, look, I don't know if you're in labor unless you come in.
yeah. So like essentially either come in or stop
Stop
calling.
calling me, yeah. So this is Saturday night, and
Oh, yeah, we have
Thursday
an
I had my OB appointment. And Thursday I was 1 centimeter dilated, and
80% effaced.
yeah. So yeah, I didn't think like, I don't know, just being 1 centimeter dilated, I'm like, I'm probably not gonna have her. Then like 7 to like 8:10, we're like, are we going? Are we not?
Back
Like,
and forth, like this. What if this happened? What if this? You know, like.
and really I just didn't want to go. It was out of like
Yeah.
pure like convenience because I was like, what if we go when it's nothing, and now we're in the hospital
Right.
for 3 hours, and that's just like so boring.
You know, what if we go and it's not really that, you know, we're not actively in labor, but they try to make us stay and it's just a hassle. And so, I mean, our dream plan was to be able to labor as much as we could and safely as we could at home so that Brittany could, you know, bounce on the ball if she wanted to take a bath, if she wanted to walk, like just to be able to walk around and like be in the comfort of her own space. That was like our biggest goal. So we were nervous, like having to go to the hospital maybe to get checked. We didn't know if they were going to be like, hey, look, you really need to stay because of this, but we're so early on that now here we are, you know, 36 hours later in labor in the hospital room. So that was kind of the thought behind it. So we finally decided to go, and
We
it's
also like didn't tell anyone because
Yeah.
I was like, this is probably a false alarm, and like I'm not like, we're not gonna tell everyone, and they're gonna freak out and like move their plans around to like come or something, and I'm just like, no, we're not
so
doing that. This is nothing.
we called her mom and
your mom,
and
that
my
was it,
mom,
really.
and because my mom's in Texas, and so we were like, look, we'll give you an update, but you may want to just kind of start getting ready. I'll let you know in like the next hour or so. So we decided to go. We packed the rest of the car.
All right, we're gonna head to the hospital. How you feeling, Mama?
Crazy.
Yeah. This will be the last time we're ever alone without a kid. I love you so much. You're such a good mama. What is it? Why are you crying? Let's do this.
This is like 8:25. We leave. 8:30. We leave.
I told my mom, I told my parents, don't come unless I tell you to come. Like, you're not coming to the hospital, it's probably nothing.
So I turn my blinker on, we pull into the hospital. And
Which
she
the
said,
hospital's like literally 7 minutes away.
Yeah, it's not far at all. And she says, all right, I'm having a contraction. So I hit start on the timer. A couple seconds goes by, and then she goes, oh God, that felt really weird.
I was like, that was kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, and she said, it felt like something popped in my stomach.
And
I was like, oh, that's crazy you say that, because this morning I was reading something that some women say that when their water bag breaks, that they feel a pop in their abdomen. And then literally 2 seconds goes by and she's like, oh my God, it's everywhere. My water just broke. It's all over me. So I'm like, oh my God, what? Like,
yeah, there's water everywhere. I'm freaking out. I'm like, it's gonna get on the seats.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the water would be like. I'm like, is it gonna be gross? Like, is the car gross? Am I gross? Like, what's going on?
Right.
So he like whips in front of the hospital. Of course, everyone and their grandma is outside of the hospital.
Perfect timing.
Like,
They're probably, I mean, no exaggeration, there's probably 25 people either coming out of the emergency room exit or standing outside.
Yeah. Just like hanging out, and like again, it's literally a movie. Like, everyone's like, oh my God, your water broke. Like, you know, whatever.
So we get her a
Like,
wheelchair.
we need a wheelchair. Like, legit a movie.
I park the car, I run upstairs, and sure enough, they're like, yeah, your water broke. We get her into a room, and we have 2 of the labor and delivery nurses come in, and they're like, hey, look, we need to check you. Let's get you on the bed. Let's get you in a gown. All this stuff.
And my contractions at this point, they are like intense. Like, they're hurting.
So they check her, and the one nurse is like, yep, you're 3 centimeters dilated, and your water has definitely broke. So we're like, oh my God, like, now we definitely can't go home because her water broke. And like, we're doing it. So this is like right at like 9 o'clock. Shortly after that, all hell starts to ensue. And it's like, she has like 2 contractions that are like pretty like, okay, this is serious, like this hurts.
Yeah, I probably had a few where it was like, I could still walk. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I was having it, and I was walking to the bathroom sink and holding on to the sink.
Yeah.
So like, the fact that I could still walk, now going through the entire labor process, I know that wasn't anything. It started to get gnarly. Like, it was like, okay, there's no more walking. And what's really funny is someone actually asked this, and I'm like, valid, because I was asking our friend who just had birth unmedicated like a month before us. You know, like, obviously I'm like, what all did you use? What was helpful?
What do we do? Yeah, how can we best prepare?
Yeah, like positions that you loved, you know, so I have this whole list of things.
We bought all kinds of stuff.
We
like
bought
a TINS machine for her back.
We got a birthing cone.
Yeah, we bought a birthing ball.
And we were gonna do the tub. Like, our room had a soaking tub.
Yeah, we wanted to soak. I mean, all the things. We were just trying our best to like prepare.
And quite literally nothing helped.
Nothing. Like, she bounced on the ball for a total of 2.5 minutes and said, you don't get this ball out of here, I'm going to pop it. So the ball was no longer used. Yeah. The birthing cone got left at home in the room where we have her changing table and stuff like that. So that was on me, and that was a mistake. So that could have worked, who knows. The TINS machine was never even mentioned.
Because legit, someone, like my mom and my nanny, like all these people were in the room with us while I was laboring, and they were just like trying to do all the things that they knew that I had said that I wanted to do.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, everybody was
helpful.
Super helpful.
And everything just like made it worse. Like, nothing made it better.
The counter pressure on her back, she didn't like it. It was like, wait, so mind you, when she's so contractions, she's 3 to 5 centimeters. Contractions like start getting very unbearable, and she's obviously can't even walk.
Like, my body, that's why I'm like shaking, because I'm like tense for the whole time.
And she'll go through the contraction like that. She's breathing as best as she can. It was crazy to experience her going through these contractions, and I mean, like, just I don't know. It's like nothing was helping except for breathing and her staying planted in that one spot.
Dusty would like go to get his phone to like text, like, you know, our best friends or his mom to
Give
like kind of
updates,
like update them, and like my contractions were coming so fast, like
so
they were less than a minute apart.
Well, yeah. So once we hit 5 centimeters and her contractions were crazy, her contractions were coming every minute, and they were lasting about a minute. So I know that sounds crazy, but she genuinely, from 10 o'clock at night until delivery, she had zero breaking.
Like I couldn't even sit down in between
Yeah.
contractions. Like as soon as
I mean, they were like
one would
progressing
end,
very quickly.
yeah, another one would come, or I would have one in like my pelvis or like the front area. You can't really like describe like where it is,
Right.
just in the front, and then it would like go to my back. Like as soon
She
as
had
I
a
was like,
contraction
oh,
in her
it's
back now for a minute.
yeah. So it was insane, and like
Which didn't really make a lot of sense because I felt like everything we read or like learned beforehand was like, your contractions will come every minute and then it won't have a minute, but it was like, wasn't like that at all. It was like,
fast.
I mean, I felt like every single minute she was like, here they come. And then we're trying to breathe. And so a lot of the things that we did, or like really what we did, the way that she labored was her contraction would start and we would start trying to breathe together. And she found that as we would breathe before the contraction started, she could maintain her breathing through the contraction. If she didn't breathe before the contraction started, then
Sure, I forgot about that.
then she wasn't able to like catch. I mean, she was able to catch her breath sometimes,
Barely, yeah. No.
but she wasn't able to catch the rhythm of breathing, which made it a lot harder for her.
Yeah, like I would need to start breathing before and like preparing
Yep.
for it.
Yep.
So yeah, and our nurse was like, she was super amazing for us. Like
Yes.
some people might have been like,
she's not in here enough, or she's
yeah,
not
or
in,
something, or like it was perfect because she was
exactly what
like,
we wanted.
yeah, she was okay with like letting me like lead
Mhm.
the entire labor
Yep.
basically,
Yep.
which was like amazing.
She would come in and say, hey, are you feeling any different? Are you feeling any different pressure?
You want me to check
Yeah,
you?
depending on Brittany's answer, she'd say, okay, do you want me to check you? And then Brittany would say, no, let's wait, or hey, yeah, like we can check.
Which I would say no
Uh-huh.
sometimes because like if I didn't feel like a noticeable like difference in pain, I didn't want her to check me because
Right.
I was like, if she checks me and I'm the same centimeter dilated, I'm gonna be like so discouraged.
Yeah.
So like when I was 4 to 5, like they were like, oh, you're halfway, and I was
Brittany
like,
looks at
4
me.
is not halfway.
She looked at me and goes, 4 is not halfway.
I was
And
like,
you're right. You just breathe. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. She gets to 5 centimeters. We're laboring, and then she checks her probably an hour maybe.
Yeah.
I would say about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. She checks her again, and she's like, "Hey, you're 7 centimeters," and we're like, "Oh my God, this is happening so quick." So now it's like 11:30 at night. I'm on the phone with my mom. I'm like, "Hey, you got to get here because I think this is gonna happen." We had a friend who's a photographer, who I'm like, "Hey, she's progressing like."
Yeah, so 7, they're, again, like as you said, they're very intense. Like, it's like the only thing I can think about is just breathing to, like, survive another one. Like, which maybe that sounds so dramatic, but, like...
Oh, it was real.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, you're just, like, in survival mode.
Yeah.
Like, and you're just like, I have to make it through this. Yeah, it was just, like, it really was just one at a time.
It was an absolute champ through the whole thing. Like, I mean, she would be in pain, like, screaming, laboring, breathing, and then the nurse would walk in and her contraction would end and the nurse would look at her, hey, trying to evaluate how she is, and she would look at her with the sweetest voice and the sweetest face and just be like, yeah, I mean, whatever you think,
Yeah, I didn't feel...
Absolutely killing it.
I didn't feel annoyed, like, like a lot of people are like, you're gonna be like,
Right.
I hate everyone, I hate you, Dusty, I hate...
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel annoyed, like,
Not
I
once.
genuinely felt like...
I was ready for her to be like, dude, if you don't get out of my face, this is it,
Which
But
it really wasn't. Like,
never,
even when everyone was trying to help and, like, it was making it worse, not because of anything they were doing, it just... That was just how it was. Like, it never felt like, oh my God, I'm, like, aggravated.
I wish this person would get out of here. She was so in tune, so, like, you could tell, like, she was focused and she was not giving up. Like, everybody was, with a good heart, everyone was like, hey, look, you can change your mind at any point in time if you want to get the epidural. So I look at her at one point, and we're like 7 centimeters, and she's been going through it. It's like probably midnight at this point. I don't even know what time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, where you at? What's going on? And I wanted to follow whatever she was wanting to do. So I was like, how are you feeling? Trying to evaluate where you're at. And she looked at me and she's like, we're already here. Let's keep going. I'm like, let's do it. It was next level. I've never seen a human perform this way before. Like it was truly just crazy. So around 1 o'clock, they come in and the nurse is asking her, she's like, let me know if you ever feel like you have to poop. And so Brittany's like, okay, I don't really feel that way yet. Like
at 7, I was like,
Yeah.
I could see what she means, but like,
I'm not there yet.
not like I'm gonna shit myself. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, that feels like I'm maybe gonna shit myself.
Yeah.
And
The nurse walks in right at the perfect time, and Brittany's like,
yeah, I was like, oh, maybe we need to check.
I think I need to shit. And the nurse is like, oh, perfect. Like, if you want, I can check you. And Brittany's like, yeah, let's check. So she gets her on the bed and she
8
checks.
centimeters.
She said, "You're 8 to 9 centimeters. I need you to stay on the bed."
It's because every time I tried, you know, like I said, like to do
It's
anything, it
unbearable.
was horrible. Like
Right.
it was, yeah. So she's like, you need to stay on the bed because basically like you're gonna have this baby. So
Yeah.
like I need you to like.
She calls the doctor. All the other nurses start coming in. The other nurse that was there helping comes in. The nursery nurse comes in. They start getting things set up, and we're kind of like, oh my God, we're about to do this. So I'm looking at Bria. I'm like, dude, you did it. Like you're there now. Is like this is the moment that you know you've been fighting for right now.
And I'm laying on the bed, literally on my side, clinched so hard to the bed. I legitimately thought that I like fractured something in my hand.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The doctor gets there, and they're like, he puts on his sterile gloves, he checks her, and he's like, yep, we're pushing your 10 centimeters, the baby's head is right here, we're pushing on the next one. And we just look at each other and we're like, this is it. Like we're about we're about to meet her, like it's over. Like you're almost there, you know? Like I mean, that sounds very naive saying it now because I guess it could have lasted 3 more hours, but
So then he's like, all right, like we're gonna push. And
the second push, the actual push, we saw her head start to come out. And I'm looking at Brittany, I'm like, oh my God, her head's right there. You're doing it. Like, you know.
And he's like, you know, push again.
He's like, great job, let's push again. And
so then I push again, and
Yep.
I feel like her shoulders and her chest come out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, push again, and I feel her like her little butt come out. And then the last push, so the 5th push, I like feel her legs. And at this point, like when I'm on like the 3rd, 4th push, I'm like, how long is this baby?
Yeah.
I think that's like one of my favorite parts actually of the unmedicated labor, of just like being able to feel that, like, because at that point it wasn't necessarily like hurting anymore. Like of course it was like the mental game of like pushing right, but like, yeah, I don't know, that was just like the coolest, like, I love that about it.
Yeah. So she comes out. When her head comes out, she doesn't start crying or anything, and I'm like looking at Cobe, and I'm like, looks really blue, but I can only see the back of her. And I'm looking at Brittany, and Brittany looks at me, and she's like, what's wrong? And you know, and I'm like, I don't think anything. I don't know. Well, the doctor does a fantastic job. Gets her, he suctions her, and she lets out just like a little cry, and I'm like,
Which is literally how she cries, so
Yeah.
it makes sense.
so I'm like, I guess that's good. I don't know. Like I'm in the movies, you see these babies come out and they're screaming and they're freaking out, and she just was not like that. And so she does like a little yelp, and then the rest of her comes out, and they put her on Brittany's chest, and she's like eyes open, just like, but she's so peaceful and quiet.
Oh,
That's why I was following it just now.
you look so peaceful. You're out in real life.
You're here, mama.
Yeah, quiet,
But-
wide-eyed.
But if you look at her around her face, she's got like a bruise, or she's just blue at this point. She's blue from her nose around her mouth, and you know we're like we don't really know, like, you know, we're not sure. Well, the nursery nurse lets us have our moment, and then she grabs her and takes her over to the thing to start working on her after I cut the cord. Obviously, that was pretty amazing. That was cool. So they take her over to the table. They start kind of working on her, and she kind of cries a little bit more, but not really much. And we're just kind of sitting there like, what's going on? Like something seems wrong, but like we don't really know what's wrong. And then a nurse practitioner from the nursery comes in and starts working on her, and we're like, I'm like, at this point I'm kind of like, oh my God, like I don't know what's going on. Like Brittany's like, is everything okay? They're not really saying anything because they're just like busy. Our doctor's kind of talking to us, and you know, so I have to go sit down because I'm like, I think there might be something wrong with her, but like I don't really know, you know. And then finally the nurse practitioner from the nursery turns around and says, hey, you know, everything's okay. She has a bruise around her nose and in her mouth where she probably hit your cervix on her exit. It's common for babies to have bruises on their face when they're born vaginally and all this stuff. But we're just making sure that it's actually a bruise and not her breathing, and like, you know, when she's not getting oxygen, she turns blue. And so we're like, okay. And she's like, we're pretty sure it's a bruise, but like we're just gonna watch her for a second. And then she starts coming around, she starts turning pink, and she's doing great, and then it's obviously a bruise, and they put her on Brittany's chest again, and
Oh, we forgot to say the part of, okay, so after the first push, he was like, hey, like, I'm gonna have to cut you, because
yeah, sorry about that.
she doesn't have enough room to come out. Just kind of like open up a little bit because, yeah, she's not gonna fit. And I was like, oh my God, do you have to? You know, like, we had been doing
Yeah, we did
massages.
the massage trying to prepare to, like, you know, tear as least as possible.
Yeah. And he was like, all right, we can try. So he didn't cut me, and I ended up tearing a little bit,
Yeah, he was,
which that was a big thing that a lot of people who were like, oh my God, I cannot believe you're going unmedicated. Like, what happens if you tear and they have to stitch you after, and you can feel everything. But the reality is, I did not feel it for a second.
He gave you some lidocaine before he
But I
gave you some local.
didn't even feel the shot. Like, again, like, so I wasn't numb down there at all. But like after the contractions,
Yeah, I don't know.
nothing compares. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure something could compare maybe, but like, for me in that moment, what they were doing, that was.
I mean, she was like talking to her mom, talking to me, like just in this like euphoric, like, wow, it's over, like, oh my God. And the doctor's sitting there, he's like, the doctor's sitting there sewing her up, the baby's fine.
We only even knew about the 3 stitches because my mom was like looking. I wouldn't have even known.
Yeah, we had requested to have an hour alone with just us, and it was amazing because as the at this point I'm like, oh my God, it's us and our newborn, like what do we do, and as the nursery nurse walks out, I'm like, when can we feed her? Like, do we feed her? And she like kind of laughs and she's like, whenever she's ready, like you can feed. And the nurse walks out and probably 2 minutes goes by and Brittany's just holding her on the chest, and you can watch Cove literally find her way to Brittany's breast, and she starts feeding all on her own. She latches on her own, and for 30 minutes she feeds. For the first like 30 minutes of her life on Earth, she feeds. And we were just like, I mean, we were crying. It was beautiful. Brittany's like,
yeah, we were in amazement.
It was amazing. It was crazy that it was like over, and so Cove was born at 1:21. So technically, Brittany started having more rhythmic contractions around 6 to 7 p.m. and Cove was born, 1:21 in the morning. And she's healthy. We're home.
It was everything that I hoped that it would be, and then obviously having her, like, that was even, everyone's like, the people who were more like encouraging or like, you can do it, like, and being like, it's just so worth it, like, yeah, obviously, like, of course, when like.
Yeah. So when you say unmedicated, what does that mean? Like, cause I didn't really know. I thought unmedicated was like no epidural, but like.
Yeah, so we did no epidural, and we did no like pain medicine beforehand or after. Yeah, even after. Which I wasn't opposed to pain medicine outside of the epidural. I knew that I didn't want to do epidural. But I didn't love the idea of having an IV in me the whole time, and like being connected to like, like I wanted to be able to like just move more freely.
Right.
One of the nurses was like, look, like. She knew that I wanted to do unmedicated.
She said, I'm going to keep it real with you real quick.
Yeah, she's like, I'm just going to be honest. She was like, the pain meds, like, you're still going to feel your contractions. You're just going to, like, be, like, out of it. Like, you're like, loopy.
Kind of sedated.
Yeah.
Like,
and I was like.
Not sedated, but, just.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's, like, the opposite of what I would want. Like, if I wanted the pain meds, it would be to, like, feel less of the pain, but still be able to, like, feel. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then the same thing after. They're like, do you want pain meds? Because obviously they just give me stitches and I just delivered baby and all this stuff. And I was just like, if I take the pain meds, like, I'm probably going to pass out. And I'm like, and that's the last thing I want to do. Like, I didn't even want to sleep. I just, like, wanted to be with her. Like,
this girl took 600 milligrams of ibuprofen 15 hours postpartum. That was when she took her first, like, pain, med or whatever you want to call it. Like, it was incredible. Like, I mean, I genuinely got to watch. I woke up the next morning the next morning we got moved to the postpartum room and everything, and I'm holding the baby and I'm looking at her and I'm like, I feel like I don't even know you. Like, you feel like a superhuman to me. Like, I don't know, and it still feels that way. I mean, we're a week.
Exactly a week.
Yeah, a week post delivery, and I'm like, I can't believe that you were capable of that. Like what you just did, and that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was euphoric. Like even afterwards, like of course I could like feel the pain when I would like try to get up or things like that. But like again, just nothing. There just was not comparable in the slightest to like the feeling of her being there and like having her and like I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to be sedated. I didn't want to be loopy. Like I wanted to be like fully like emotionally, mentally engaged. Like everything. So it never even genuinely like crossed my mind as an option to like start taking pain medicine. I'm like, again, and after the labor, I was like, if I can do that, like I can deal with like stitches, pain.
I mean, that's pretty much it. That's her birth story.
Yeah.
We love her so much. I mean, she sleeps all day long and then wakes up when it's my turn at night and stays up until
Yeah.
the wee hours of the night.
Yeah, we just are obsessed with her.
Yeah.
It was so much. She's so much better than I think anyone could prepare you for. Like,
Yeah. You know.
and I will say, if you're considering unmedicated labor in any way, you know, like, just find people who will encourage that and like, and genuinely like believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
Because I think there were moments that were really difficult for me, just being pregnant and people being like, just wait until you hit this centimeter,
Yeah,
just
good
wait
luck,
until
right,
this happens, and like then you're definitely gonna be one.
Yeah.
And like I really had to fight those, like, not that it was negative, but it was for me. Like it did feel negative for me in that way.
And most of those people were just speaking from experience. They
Right.
weren't genuinely trying to be like, you
Yeah.
can't do it, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, they just didn't want me to be naive, of
Right.
course. But again, like for me, what I needed, and I think what most people probably need, I don't know, maybe that's just an assumption, is like you need the positive thoughts and like
definitely. Yeah.
the like I can do this, the like this is gonna happen the way that I want it to happen, you know, and if it doesn't, of course, then you deal with that.
Yeah.
But it's like it doesn't feel worth it to go into it with like a negative mindset of like I'm gonna fail at this, because you're not if you don't want to,
Yeah.
you know. And of course, everyone's labor is different, and I think that my labor could have gone so many different ways, and the outcome could have been totally different. But yeah.
And we tried to keep we weren't glued to one plan, like one
Yeah,
type
we
of birth.
weren't even glued to no epidural. Like,
We
I knew
weren't.
that I didn't want to do it if I didn't have to. But like, if something would have happened and they would have said like, hey, it's dangerous for
Yeah.
her, it's dangerous for you, like I would have gotten it immediately.
Of course, yeah. We were never anti-epidural, anti-medication. We just were tried to get educated on both sides of the spectrum and chose like, hey, this is what we want to do. And so I think that was helpful, because when we got to 7 and 8 centimeters and she's like been, you know, having these crazy ungodly contractions for 5 hours now, she wasn't glued to no epidural, but she knew, hey, I can do this. Like I know that I can do this because I know what both sides mean.
Yeah, and my biggest thing, I think I said this maybe, of not wanting to get it was like I wanted to be able to move around and walk around if I wanted to. It's funny because I didn't really walk around. I did stand up though, and our hospital's rule was that you couldn't get
Pain
out of the
meds
bed.
or epidural, if you received either of them, it's just because it's a liability, you can't stand.
Yeah, which every hospital's different, but ours was that way, and I knew that I didn't want to, you know, not have that option.
Yeah. I want to ask you, we listened to this little course thing beforehand, and the lady said like, hey, you know, an unmedicated birth is 90% mental. Would you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
Maybe I'll say 80.
80?
Maybe like 20 is like, holy shit, like this
Yeah.
is like really painful. But I mean, again, it's like, if you're not in the mental space, then you couldn't do it. But if you are, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why
Sure.
I'd say 80, but I don't want to say 80 to say that only 20 is pain, because it's fucking painful.
It looked like 80% was pain and 20% was
Yeah,
mental
exactly,
from my
yeah.
perspective.
Yeah,
But,
so,
you know.
yeah, of course they go hand in hand, but like, yeah, it hurt,
Yeah.
like, and you can't explain it, you can't compare it to anything, even I can't. I've never experienced a pain that was similar to that. Someone asked if we had done anything to like prepare or like go into labor faster, and you never really know if the things that you did actually made you go into labor faster, because you don't know when you would have gone,
Right.
if not. But I tried to stay pretty active throughout pregnancy. First trimester I was not at all, I was super sick. But like second and third trimester, even the days that I was sick, I like really pushed through and tried to walk.
Yeah.
If anything, just like walked. And stretched. I like really try to do the stretches to like keep my cervix, you know, all the ways that it should be, and good for her and stuff. So up until literally, I mean, we already said this, the morning of, we walked 5 miles. The day before, we walked.
Would you say that, I mean, you didn't normally walk 5 miles. What would you normally
true.
walk, like a very normal day? Because
That's
5 miles, that feels very like,
That's
you
true.
know.
Yeah, that was more. When
That was
we
a lot.
would normally work out, I would walk about 2 miles,
Uh-huh.
some of that being incline, some of that being
Yeah.
like speed walking, and then again just a lot of stretches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then what else? I mean, we try to do the things. I ate dates. I mean, we did the massages. Some people say that will like induce labor, which I don't think that it did. They said, yeah, it's safe to do it at this time.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and again, it is good to prevent tearing. So maybe that's why I didn't tear as bad, even
Yeah.
though she really didn't have a lot of room.
Yeah.
And Dusty did those for me because I like it. I mean, your belly's huge. I don't know how anyone can do that to themselves.
Yeah, no way.
But other than that, I mean, I bounced on the ball.
Yeah, she'd have some back pain. She'd sit on the ball and kind of rotate her hips and stuff like that. But I would say, from my perspective, you just tried to stay active. Like, you tried, even when you felt like shit, like, you just tried to, like, stay active, stay eating at least a balanced diet. I mean, you know, like, just trying to do things to prepare for the intense labor. And I think you did amazing. Like,
yeah, I don't know that I could have made it through as gracefully, if you would call it that, if I wouldn't have like stayed somewhat healthy throughout the pregnancy.
Yep.
Because it was just hours of like tightness and like tense. Like, again, I was standing, my body was tense. Like, if I would have been out of shape, or maybe my hips were tight or things like that. Like, I hadn't been doing those things. Like, I think it would have been a lot harder on my body.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to say who was in the room. So during labor, again, no one knows what labor is going to be like, but no one planned. I mean, I feel like you can't really plan for this. Of course you can have a plan, but so literally it's me, Dusty, my mom, my dad, my little brother, my godmother, my cousin, my aunt. Like, they're all in the room.
This is like all the way up until they're like, hey, you're 8 to 9 centimeters. We need you to stay on the bed. They were in the room helping, fanning her, cold towels,
So
massaging
this was like a team
her. I mean,
effort.
just trying everything we could, which was not, that was not our plan. We thought it was just going to be me and her mom in the room. And then they were like...
But we thought that the labor process would have been more of, like Dusty said, like, contraction, kind of hang out, talk.
We got some time, eat some snacks, hang out, bounce on the ball, do this, do the birth cone. We
But
thought it was just
it's
going to be
like everyone's like, this is like a freaking actual like pit stop, like
it was quick, fast paced. It was like
my dad's asleep on the couch in the back of the
the
room,
whole time,
literally snoring while I'm screaming.
Yeah,
it was just really funny. But and again, like, I think if someone would have asked me before, like, do you want all those people in the room when you're like whatever, I would have been like, I don't know, probably not if I'm in a lot of pain, but like
she was here. It was just
and I loved it. Like, I loved that they could be there even to like help and be a part of it, and like
it was special. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It truly like took a village, but at the same time she was in it. And, so I think that's it. We love you, Cove.
I love you, baby.